Good morning. Good morning. I am Bianca and I am watching along the Charlie Adelson trial in reference to the murder of Dan Markel, his brother in law. And this has turned out to be a very interesting trial so far. We are currently in the closing arguments. The prosecution has just finished their closing arguments a few minutes ago. The defense should be up at any moment. So we're going to be watching along the defense closing argument and then coming back later to do the prosecution again, maybe stop and have a little bit more details. Now, I would like to take a look at some of the comments so far in the channel here that is showing the trial. So people are saying, let me see some of the comments. Some people, with how smart they are, with all their degrees, sure are stupid. Too much time in school and working so much and not enough time in real life and on the streets. I guess she's referencing maybe to the defendant because the defendant is a doctor, he's a dentist, and he has left a couple of clues, right, that can point to his involvement in the murder of his brother-in-law. Like he was talking to his ex-girlfriend about how crimes are documented and how crimes are proved, and you have to put somebody in the scene, and you have to also match uh, the DNA and all of that kind of stuff. The conversations that he had with his ex-girlfriend are very suspicious because people that don't commit crimes are not going to be like sitting there talking about, okay, this is where the DNA was and this is the car, and they would have to put me here and there and there, and going through all these possibilities to say they would need to have all these things in order to prove that I had an involvement. So that is, I think, what the comment is in reference to here. We also have, let me see what else. I'm going to go scroll all the way up. And Wendy was only there because she was forced to. I don't know about all that. And I don't know what the situation is with Wendy. Wendy is the sister. She's the wife of the deceased. And she does seem to have some type of involvement or at least knowledge about what happened. But I don't know anything about her case. I don't know what's going on, if she's going to be charged or not. We're definitely going to revisit that in the future. Now we have it speaks volume because of what we know are the facts and that they also know are the facts. Okay. See, the kids are older. They're like 14 and 15 now. I feel so bad for the kids. Take a plea. That is the face of a man who knows he's toast. I don't know about all that because he seems very a little bit arrogant at times. Like when he was in the witness stand and the prosecutor was asking him questions, he repeated, "You are wrong," like a few times. He probably told the prosecutor she was wrong like 5 times. And that is a very weird position, right? You're being accused of murder. I would think you would be more humble, but he's like, "You are wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong." Like, okay, so he kind of finds pleasure showing the prosecutor that she's wrong. Fine. Okay. So I don't know if he's completely defeated, yeah, in his own mind, right? Let's see. Wait. The court's coming back. The court's coming back. Court's coming back, guys. All right. It is awful. Anytime anybody is facing life in prison, I think
Everyone
it's
can be seated.
awful. Um,
Mr. Rauschbaum, you may give the defense's closing.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court,
let's do it. Let's do it. Defense is going in for the closing arguments. Let's see if they make any sense.
Good morning. As we discussed in jury selection, Charles Adelson is presumed to be innocent. To overcome that presumption of innocence, the state has the heavy burden of proving beyond a reasonable doubt that Charlie committed the crime that they say he committed. We did not have to present any evidence whatsoever. That's how our system works. We
Okay.
did not need to prove his innocence.
True.
As you go through the trial, you were told that you needed to evaluate the evidence through a lens of innocence, a presumption of innocence. Now, I think we did prove his innocence in this trial, but that isn't the standard. That's not what you go back there and deliberate. What you see in this trial is a mountain of reasonable doubt that arises from the evidence itself, from the conflict in the evidence, and from the lack of evidence. The state's first question to Mr. Adelson when he was on the stand was something called Occam's razor. Their first question was referring to their belief that the simple answer is the preferred answer. You might recall them asking that question, the very first question they asked Ms. Charlie. Occam's razor, that proposition that the simple answer is the preferred answer, is the exact opposite of what our criminal justice system is about. See, Occam's razor is a guess. We don't guess in this country. We don't assume people to be guilty. We presume them to be innocent. And sometimes the simple answer is the wrong answer. Sometimes things aren't so simple. And that's what we have in this case. I talked to you in opening about puzzle pieces. I talked to you in opening about how puzzle pieces wouldn't fit. And that's exactly what you saw repeatedly in this case. Just one of those puzzle pieces is enough for reasonable doubt. But here we have a mountain of them. And let's talk about them briefly. Government Exhibit 59. This is their conspiracy chart. The first puzzle piece that doesn't fit is motive.
Okay. Why not?
See, Charlie Adelson didn't have a motive to upend his life. Charlie Adelson had a good life. His business was booming.
Yeah, but the killers
was
didn't have any
supportive of
motive.
his
They
sister.
didn't even know
But he
the
didn't wake up in
disease.
the morning thinking about Professor Markel. He didn't go to bed at night thinking about the problems his sister was having. He was living his life. Now, was it a bitter divorce? Absolutely. But through all of those crazy emails, are there any examples of any violence? None. Those emails, we spent about 10 minutes hearing about them this morning. Not Charlie's ideas. By the way, those emails weren't even done. You heard from Wendy Adelson. She never offered any of those things to Professor Markel. She never threatened him with any of those things.
That we know of.
Crazy ideas? Yes. An upset mother? Yes. Pushing each other's buttons? Yes. But ladies and gentlemen, even the $1 million offer you heard, lawyers were consulted to make sure it was legal. A far cry from a murder.
I don't remember if
Their
the lawyers
relocation
testified to that they were consulted about the
Relocation was
bribe.
denied a year before the murder. And by the way, Wendy Adelson and her two boys moving to South Florida, would have no impact on Charlie Adelson. Would he be happy that they were there? Sure. Would it change his life? No. Now, you may wonder, why did we spend so much time on cross proving Wendy Adelson's innocence? The reason being is because on their exhibit, take a look who is in their conspiracy. They circled her for you in their opening cross. See, they were guessing about Wendy just like they're guessing about Charlie. What the evidence showed is that Wendy wanted to leave South Florida. But when it was denied in the summer of 2013, she made a life here in Tallahassee. What the evidence showed, and remember, I tried to get in email after email after email, and they fought me on it. Ask yourself why. Ask yourself what they were afraid for you to see.
What were they afraid for me to see?
You saw that she made appointments after the time of the murder. She made them before. You saw she made plane tickets from Tallahassee to other places.
See, I'm not following him
in the
as
fall and winter.
well as I was following the prosecution.
You saw that she
earlier.
got a new divorce lawyer.
Okay.
You saw that she was making play dates. And significantly, you saw that the entire family was making plans to come up here and see her celebrated for her book at FSU with incoming students. Why is that significant? Because their theory, their simple theory, is that she was part of a murder.
Wendy?
It's a puzzle piece that does not fit.
Oh, him and the puzzle
We're going to
pieces.
talk about her trip down Trescott on the 18th, because that's a puzzle piece that they keep on trying to pound and doesn't fit, but we'll do that a little later. The next puzzle piece that doesn't fit. Who had the kids? See, one thing that the state
Dan had
and
the
the
kids.
defense can agree on is that the Adelsons love these two boys.
Okay, that's true. It seems.
But they would have you believe that they hired hitmen twice. And both times, who had custody of the kids?
Dan.
They would take a risk that these boys would be injured, killed. Does that make any sense?
That doesn't make any sense, but they could have
The
very well
June attempt,
said
Remember, Wendy
only do the
and
job
Danny
if the kids are not
share
around.
the kids 50-50. The June attempt, we learned from their witness, Luis Rivera, Danny had custody of the kids. And we learned that he wouldn't do the murder because the kids were there. The July attempt, they show you a text message about Professor Markel being in town. And they show you a text message where Wendy's asking for the boys on the 16th.
Let's see some of the common
The
speculation.
murder's done on the
Everyone
18th.
knew Wendy did not like living in
Who has custody of the
Tallahassee.
kids?
Your puzzle is so puzzling.
Professor Markel.
It ain't puzzling. George's absorbing
make
every word.
sense.
True. Charlie never thought about that
There
idea.
is no chance if these people were
Absolute
behind
reasonable
the murder,
doubt.
they would
State
take
had the
any
narrative
risk
and then stuffed the arguments
those
to fit
boys
in.
would be in the
Rashburn, they wanted to
crosshairs.
pin it on Jeff. That's true.
Use your common
Even
sense.
Charlie looks puzzled.
It's a puzzle piece that they cannot explain.
Puzzle. You said it. Use your common sense, which means Charlie
You
and
know
his
what else
whole
doesn't make
family are in
sense?
bed together. Yeah, I mean, that's what it seems like to
Is
me.
there alibi
Folks,
argument.
this isn't TV. Lawyers in real life scream and yell and stop
So they make
and
a
wave
big
their
argument
arms
about this Best Buy repairman
they
coming
don't
that
have a
morning,
case.
how it was
What?
set up for an alibi. The argument, by the way,
Oh
makes
my God, Rush
absolutely no
about
sense.
making more sense than
Because then they
Georgia.
argue that Wendy purposefully went down the street
Too obvious
from
that
where she
Charlie's
was
not
supposed to
guilty.
get an alibi
Okay.
from. But let me ask you this question.
Judge not looking at Rash.
Again, use your common sense. If the Adelsons and
What
Charlie
is your
wanted to set
reasonable
up an
doubt?
alibi for not only Wendy, but
This closing is
themselves,
worse than I expected. Charlie's breathing is ramping
why not
up.
do the murder on July 5th
Wow, the doctor is done. What the
when
defense
each
can say
and
to
every
save
one
this
of
guy?
them
So far, nothing.
is at a birthday party for their
right.
father in South Florida? Wouldn't that have been a better alibi? They didn't do that because they're not behind the murder. They didn't know it was going to happen. They have nothing to do with it.
Charlie be looking
It's
so
a puzzle
nervous.
piece
Of course.
That
Puzzle
doesn't make sense. It's reasonable doubt.
Don't know about all of that now.
Sigfredo threatened Charlie.
Okay. No, he didn't, but
Now
okay.
the state has them as co-conspirators.
We don't have any proof of Sigfredo threatening
The
Charlie.
testimony is clear. Sigfredo Garcia hated Charlie Adelson. The testimony is
true.
clear from their own witnesses that Sigfredo Garcia wanted to kill Charlie Adelson.
True, because he was sleeping with Katie, his
In
girlfriend.
fact, you
Slash
hear that
wife.
on March 11th, 2014, just 8.5 weeks before the first attempt, you hear that Luis Rivera, that Sigfredo was stalking Charlie. And he wanted to run him over with his car.
Very true.
He wanted to kill him. He's going to do that 8 weeks before he does a murder for him? Makes no sense. But it gets
Okay.
worse. You heard testimony in
That's
this
true.
courtroom from repeated witnesses, both law enforcement and otherwise, that on July 1st, just 17 days before the murder, Sigfredo Garcia tried to run Charlie off the road, threatened him, left a threatening voicemail that he was going to kill him. Left it with his
Yes,
dad,
but
who
he
thought
was going to
leaving
kill
it
him
for
because he was
Charlie.
sleeping with his ex. But
Just 17
when it comes to
days
money, maybe the ex was like,
before the
well,
state
he's
wants
willing to
you to
pay you
believe
all this money to
he
kill
went and
the
did a hit
brother-in-law.
for him.
So I don't know about all that argument either,
It
Rashomon.
doesn't make any sense. It's a puzzle piece that doesn't fit.
Okay, let's see what the people are
Now they'll
saying.
come up here in rebuttal, and they'll probably say
This
something
is
like,
an argument, not like the
Sigfredo
prosecutor
didn't
that
know
was
what he
merely
was doing.
summarizing
Katie
everything.
was
That's
siloing
their
him
job.
of information. Ask
I
yourselves
feel
if that
sorry.
makes
This
any
is very
sense.
weak. He should be spending most of the time attacking Garcia
Ask
and Lewis.
yourself
The state
if
called
after
them
the
all
first
liars
attempt,
multiple
he
times,
doesn't
and I'll
know
believe him.
exactly who he's killing.
So little doubt. The joke was before he decided
It's
to do
reasonable
it.
doubt, ladies and
He's
gentlemen.
reading his argument. Terrible.
It's a puzzle piece.
Not
that they
guilty.
cannot
Not guilty.
explain.
He screwed up his board, making Charlie the biggest puzzle piece of all of it. Advertising note. That's why the speaking in code.
We learned in this trial that Charlie repeatedly made this off-color joke.
Not guilty.
And let me
There
say
ain't no
something
doubt.
aside.
Guilty.
You don't
Not
have to
guilty.
like Charlie Adelson.
Prosecutors overcharged circumstantial case with 3 convicted
There are
murders,
plenty of
gang
reasons
members
not
as
to
their
like
star witness. Wake up, folks. All right, people are undecided.
That
People are
doesn't make him a
undecided.
murderer. Now, this hitman joke, we learned that Charlie made it with people he hardly knew. That he made it repeatedly. We learned from their own witness that at a March 11th dinner, this is Jeff Lacoste, when he first met Charlie, Charlie made the joke. Ask yourselves, does it make any sense for a guy who is about to do a hit, about to murder someone, to go around town and advertise it?
Doesn't make sense, but he doesn't stop talking.
Doesn't fit.
Right, but he's a talker.
Reasonable doubt. Ask yourselves, does it make more sense for Catherine Magbanua, a professional liar and con artist, to hear the joke, to hear the $1 million offer, and start to get ideas? They want to call it coincidences. It's not a coincidence. Criminals do not advertise what they are about to do. That makes no sense. Reasonable doubt. Puzzle pieces that don't fit.
Stop with the puzzle pieces. Well, he won't. That's his theory, so whatever.
Payment evidence. Miss Kappelman mocked in her cross of Charlie that this was a murder by layaway. Meaning that doesn't make any sense.
This is not compelling. He wouldn't have
We
done
agree with
that.
her.
I know Charlie's looking to the
It
abyss.
doesn't make any sense.
When Lewis went to the Popo to make a deal, Lewis had
Murders
facts
for
that
hire
corroborated
are
his
not done
story.
by layaway.
I don't know why only defendants and their witnesses and lawyers get to
But
rampantly
you know what is
lie.
done by layaway? Extortion.
Rauschenbaum is nailing this, not
See,
guilty.
We learned in this
All
trial
right.
that
I don't-
Catherine Magbanua got paid every month. She denied it. Their own witnesses proved it. We learned that she got paid $3,000 a month, $2K in cash and $1K in checks from the Adelson Institute. By the way, if Charlie's part of a murder, they're telling you how smart he is. Does it make any sense that he would create a paper trail of checks from his business to pay for the murder? It makes no sense. But aside from that, you heard from Special Agent Sanford. He has done around a dozen murder for hires. Never a payment over time. He's seen extortions like that, but never someone getting paid over time. The money drop was the next day. You heard about that. Ask yourself, if this was a murder for hire, why was payment not made before? See, the state gave you examples of days before the first attempt and days before the murder, where Charlie Adelson was with Catherine Magbanua. If it's a murder for hire, why didn't he pay her before?
True.
You heard on the night of the murder and the night of the extortion, she had to go run around town to find a babysitter for her kids. If it was planned, if Charlie was behind it, why would she not have it planned out that way? Why would he have not paid her before? See, because he had no idea it was going to happen.
How can a person be extorted and not pay the full amount? LOL. Set up
That's
indeed,
the
not
only
guilty.
thing that makes sense.
Exactly. Last thing you'd want to do if someone is committing a crime against you is to go to the police, right? It's like a magical realism defense, but that's
By the
what you
way,
get when you're so guilty and busted
Why
and you
would she need a
insist on going to
babysitter at
trial
all if
anyway.
it was a murder for hire?
Donna, the mom, is guilty of not liking
If
her
it's a murder for hire,
son-in-law and wanting her
how
grandkids and daughter
quickly-
nearby. That's all.
how much time does it take to go
No, it
pick
will
up
be a
money?
hung jury, and they could do the trial all over
Go to the
again. That is
house,
what happened in
get the
Katie's
bag of
first
money,
trial.
and leave?
He's scared of the Lion King.
See, the
Lion
thing
King.
is, she didn't know how much
What
time
was
it was going to
motivation for
take.
Katie's friend to be the
And
murder?
you know why
to
she
do
didn't
the
know how
murder?
much time it was
Exactly.
going to take? Because
Wow,
she didn't
this
know
is
how he was
bad.
going to react.
If he keeps up those long
It
pauses,
wasn't
we're
just
not going to have a
A
verdict
pickup
today.
of the money on July 18th. It was a setup of an extortion. Now, we're going to get more into the extortion, but it's amazing to me that the state still doesn't understand what happened. And I wonder if they don't understand or they're trying to confuse you. So let me make this crystal clear now, and we'll get back to it later.
Okay.
On the night of the 18th, Charlie Adelson had no idea about anything about the Latin Kings. He had no knowledge of the Latin Kings. He doesn't find out anything about the Latin Kings until he's in the car with Catherine Magbanua moments before he goes into Dolce Vita. On the night of the 18th, what he's told is that Catherine Magbanua said she spoke too much and that a friend of hers had done this. Nothing about any Latin Kings. The payment structure makes no sense. The whole purpose of a murder for hire is to hire someone who you are not associated with, who you are not tied to. But yet, they would have you believe that Charlie would give them checks, would continue to text message with them, would continue to give them gifts because he was tied to a murder for hire. It shows just the opposite. It shows it's an extortion. Reasonable doubt. Katie's lies. Let me first start by apologizing. If any of you were offended by the tone of my voice during my cross of Catherine Magbanua.
No, I don't even remember the tone of your
See,
voice.
the thing is,
Doesn't matter. Go ahead.
I think you all know me pretty well by now.
I don't know about all
I'm
that.
passionate. And I believe in the system.
Oh,
And the one thing I hate is when someone comes in this courtroom
lies.
and lies. I hate even more when a murderer
believe
comes
him.
in this courtroom and lies.
Let's see what people are saying about this. Understand, Charlie recalled too much. He's clearly lying.
What we
Weasel.
know
This
is that
time,
the state
Katie's
called
telling the truth.
Catherine Magbanua.
Godly gosh, I hate it when people lie.
Talk
Did he
about
really just say that?
desperation.
Too funny.
Trying
Can't
to
stand
prove
lies,
their
but know
case
his client
beyond
is
a
guilty.
reasonable doubt.
Puzzle pieces. Pathetic defense. Fairy tale
They
that doesn't
called
make
a
sense.
woman
Guilty.
who lied under oath in her first trial.
They have to disbelieve the 3 inmates.
They called a woman who lied under oath in her second trial.
We
They called a
know
woman who tried to
for
get
a
Sigfredo
fact
Garcia to
that
lie
Katie's
for her
a liar
in her
and a
second
murderer.
trial.
We do not know that about Charlie.
But
Not
worse,
guilty for reasonable doubt.
They
All right.
called a woman who
Liar,
just a year
liars.
ago
Pants on fire.
lied during her proffers. She denied it. And by the way, they didn't
Fantastical
question her on it.
defense. Katie's a liar. He still owes.
But you heard from their own
Your
witnesses,
client is the biggest liar of
including
them
Special
all.
Agent Sanford, that he walked out of the room. And he walked out of the room not the first 10 minutes. He walked out of the room over 3 hours after she started speaking. Because as he put it, what she was saying made no sense. And they're going to have you base this man's freedom on her words?
Well, and the other people's words too.
And why did she lie?
And all his text messages and
Because
videos.
it's the only way out.
That's true. Very good argument there.
But her lying didn't stop there. She lied to you. We caught her in lies. She said she didn't get paid overtime. We know she got paid overtime.
Katie Sproffer, tell me what you guys
She
want me to
said
say.
she didn't know when the murder happened, when the plan changed to a murder, and that the plan was to murder Professor Markel. You've heard the wires. We see her lying to her co-conspirator, according to them, Charlie Adelson, on the wires themselves. We see her saying repeatedly to him that she has called the number hundreds of times.
What do you guys think the judge thinks?
That it's a non-working number, that the number just rings.
Judge Ever is rocking
that
himself.
They
to
left a
sleep.
voicemail. All of those are lies.
Oh my god.
By the way, you know who she doesn't lie to?
Oh.
Sigfredo Garcia. You know who else she lied to? Luis Rivera. We heard that. She lied to him about the purpose of the trip. She lied to him about the lady being on the street. She told Luis that Wendy was on the street the day before the murder with her kids. Now,
But the doctor is too
read
smart
a
to fall
stipulation
for
in,
Katie's lies,
which
right?
both sides agree on. That shows that Wendy could not be on the street with the kids. Luis Rivera didn't lie. She lied to him.
Jennifer says Charlie lost some puzzle pieces.
She lied to him about the amount
Is
of
the
money
jury
they got.
deliberating now? No, guys, this is
She told him
live.
it was $100,000.
She was sleeping with the enemy,
was
so she would keep her
$138,000.
mouth shut about his
And she
involvement.
never told him that she was getting paid every month.
That fairy tale makes no sense.
Remember,
Here she goes
Rivera wanted to do a
belittling the
robbery.
jury again. They do
Ms.
not
Appleman
appreciate
comes
that.
up here in her closing, and she says, why didn't they just do a robbery?
Right.
Wouldn't that have been easier?
Yes, it would.
Remember, Rivera brought up that very point. And what is he told by Sigfredo Garcia? It can't be a robbery. Katie says we have to do it this way.
Why? What is she to gain of
Ask
that?
yourself why.
Exactly. Why?
The bottom line is, Charlie Adelson was conned. On the night of the 18th, he was scared. He didn't think she was part of it. He thought she was protecting him. That's why he thought the money didn't go up every month. That's why he thought he wasn't getting visited by any bad guys. And that made him closer to her over time. Reasonable doubt, a puzzle piece doesn't fit.
Give me these
Immunity.
puzzle pieces. The prosecution go, yeah, this
She
lawyer
was
is
offered
brilliant.
to
We know
get
for a
out
fact
of
that Katie's a
jail
liar and a
free
murderer
card.
who wants a reduced
And she
sentencing.
didn't
Do
take
not
it.
know that about Charlie, not guilty for reasonable doubt.
She was offered it before her first trial.
Years in
Now,
prison
she had
and
an
he never
explanation
told
for
his
that.
fable.
I didn't want to turn on my.
Yes,
my
they
husband.
closed already. Listening to how involved
about
Donna
after
and
he was
Charlie were
convicted
with
and
Wendy's
his
next
appeals were
boyfriend
over?
makes you get an idea what Dan was dealing with.
Remember,
Prosecutor
her
will
first
go
trial
last
was
one
in
more time after
19.
he's done. True.
Her second trial was in 2022.
It goes again. I'm listening to the state.
See-
State will rebuttal.
She couldn't take the immunity offer because when you take the immunity offer, you have to tell the truth. And if you're caught telling a lie, you not only lose immunity, but you've now confessed. You now have no defense. She
Puzzle
knew she
pieces.
extorted Charlie. She knew
I just
she
feel like
tricked
we
him.
should say that every
She knew
few
he wasn't
minutes.
part of the murder,
Puzzle
and that's
pieces.
why she never took the immunity deal.
I bet Rashomon uses this puzzle piece
Reasonable
story
doubt.
for all his
Puzzle
clients.
pieces that no matter how hard you try to hammer them in, don't fit. And let me ask you a question. Ask yourself why, when the state called her as a witness, they didn't ask her one question about the wires. Go back and look at your notes.
Okay. No,
Not one question about what was said and meant at Dolce Vita.
Dolce Vita.
Not one question of what they talked about in the car before Dolce Vita.
Or Dolce Vita.
And then Charlie Adelson takes the stand. And they have an opportunity to rebut him. They have an opportunity to call her back to the stand and say, you're not going to believe this crazy, unreasonable story that Charlie just wove. They don't call her back to the stand. They don't ask her any of those questions because they don't trust her. Because they know that she can't answer those questions. Because the truth is, they have doubt.
He's so guilty. I fear the jury will not see it that way. Look at his little hobbit hands.
They have doubt.
Rashomon apparently missed the prosecution case. He's not
That's
making
why
any
it took
sense. Sleeping with the peace.
6 years after her arrest to even charge Charlie Adelson.
All people I know who are paranoid about cops have cameras. If it was for hire, he wouldn't leave a paper trail. Literally,
Ask
it's
yourself,
pathetic. Oh, he put
why
up cameras.
were
It
they
must be
so
innocent.
afraid to ask her any of those questions?
Rauschenberg cannot pronounce Dolce Vita. What a clown. He's diverting attention. I'm still lost with his whole theory.
Security cameras.
Why would Sigfredo
Now,
and
let me be
Tato
clear.
kill Dan
In
Markel?
closing,
They didn't
Ms.
even know the guy.
Appleman said that no one testified that Charlie's demeanor changed in 2014.
29-dimensional chess.
No one was asked about that.
Puzzle pieces.
He doesn't
Captain
meet
Safety,
June
they all
in
spread their
Chino
legs.
until 2015.
You thought he was untouchable. That's it. True.
But what we do know is his behavior did change. What we know from evidence in the record is that he started sleeping with a gun. What we know from evidence in the record is that he invested in camera equipment for his house and for the office. Now, the state comes up here and they say, well, there's this email or text message from months earlier.
The
where
PowerPoint
he's
is
talking
solid.
about
I am open to anyone
putting in
stating there
camera
reasonable
equipment.
doubts in the case. Captain Safety, he says
True.
threatened. Katie can't
Guess
pronounce
what
the
he didn't
T.
do
Uses
months
a D.
earlier?
What a dummy.
He didn't put in camera equipment.
The puzzle pieces do fit. You
But
must
guess
not
what
acquit.
he does just weeks after he's extorted? Just weeks after Professor Markel is brutally murdered in broad daylight in his driveway.
Unreasonable doubt.
He puts in
Bingo.
camera equipment. If
Okay.
he's a co-conspirator, who's he afraid of? According to them, he's the guy behind it.
Good
The
argument.
camera equipment is to protect himself against himself?
Well, he's sleeping with a lady that dates a Latin king.
Reasonable doubt.
My client's but a poor millionaire country city dentist. He's being extorted by the Aladdin kings who he's never heard of, but they sound so scary. Is it true that Rashomon gets another $1 million as bonus for
The
acquittal?
liars.
I don't believe Katie came up with the extortion
Support.
plots.
What happened?
The jury
On
will
the
do the
night of
right
the
thing. They will give him a
They
not
support
guilty
that he was
verdict.
extorted.
I don't know about all that.
Now, I'll first talk about State's Exhibit 130. You'll remember this when I talk about it. It's 21 months after the murder and the extortion.
Puzzle
It's
pieces.
before the bump. It's one of these calls about Dave.
I disagree with the bump. I think they should just call
And it's
extortion.
very interesting and scary what happened in
Silly.
this trial on this call.
Okay.
State
Puzzle
plays
pieces.
18 minutes of the call, and then they cut it off. They ask the witness how important the call is because it's before the bump. Meaning there's no reason whatsoever that anyone is thinking that they're being listened to. 21 months after the murder, 21 months after the extortion. And at 20 minutes and 40 seconds in the call, 2 minutes after they cut it off, you hear what Charlie Adelson thought about Professor Markel. You hear him describe what happened to him as a tragedy. His own words, in real time. You hear him say to his mom that Professor Markel is not replaceable. They didn't want you to hear that. I want to go back briefly to the security cameras. Ms. Kappelman comes in here today and she talks about the times that Charlie went to the police. And she brings up examples of filing a lawsuit. She brings up an example of a dispute with a girlfriend. Those are very different than being told you have 48 hours to pay or you and your family are going to get killed. Especially taken in the context that just 9 hours earlier, Professor Markel was shot in broad daylight, executed. Reasonable doubt, a puzzle piece that just doesn't fit. Let's talk more about these wires. States Exhibit 108, that's all the wires together. There's subparts of it. And I want to draw your attention to A, B, and C. These are the first 3 calls with Donna Adelson after the bump. What you see on these calls is that initially,
Let's read some
for at least
comments.
the
Let's
first
make
call and a
this.
half,
I'm feeling
Charlie
gaslit.
Adelson
Yep.
has no
Donna's
idea
going to be
whatsoever
next.
what she's talking about.
Guilty. We all know
Now,
Casey
ask
Anthony
yourself-
was guilty.
If you did a murder with someone,
Puzzle pieces.
wouldn't that be the first thing on your mind?
Yep, you're right. He's such a narcissist. He thought he was being a real
He has
thug. He
no
underestimated the
clue
law.
what she is saying. He's
I love
talking
the payment
about
plan.
Yelp. He's talking
$3,000 a
about the
month.
IRS. He's talking about being sued. He has no clue. She says it's about the 2 of us. We've already done this. We beat a horse to death on this. It's about the 2 of us. You were extorted, and now I'm being extorted. It doesn't even make sense under their
Probably
theory
gonna
of
get royal
murder.
treatment by the Latin kings in prison. Yep. More like the nerd from Ghostbusters 1984.
By the
Donna
way,
Wendy is currently on the
On those
phone,
first calls,
detaining him for the appeal, but on what
she
grounds?
wants to meet with them when Wendy and Harvey are not around.
Oh, extortion for 5,000. He asked all of the question, but
I'm confused.
extortion
I
for
thought they were
130,000. Here,
co-conspirators,
take all the
according to the
money. Let's put this defense attorney's logic back on him. If you take
A
Katie and
puzzle
the other
piece
2
that
gang
makes no
members, what do
sense.
they have in common?
By
Charlie.
the way, he starts to figure out what it is when she brings up blackmail.
Big contradiction. He
she
can be
brings
figuring
up, and
put
you can listen
ID.
to
They
it,
were the
you'll see
same
the
people
hesitation in
because
his
according
voice
to
that
him,
he needs to bring cash
it's likely elephants will fly
when they meet the
too.
next day for lunch.
He didn't know them.
He starts to figure it out. And what does he immediately shift his attention to? Don't take my word for it. You can listen to the wires. Was the guy white or Hispanic? Was the guy wearing a disguise? Was the guy threatening? Did he give you 48 hours? He's trying to figure out if it's the same people. Now, they talk about why would he call Katie? His mom doesn't say anything about Katie, and he has other ex-girlfriends. Well, he has only one ex-girlfriend that on July 18th came to him and said, you have to pay money. I'm not part of this. Because if you don't pay money, they're going to kill you. And see, they ignore D 1392, part of the same exhibit. He slips. 3 minutes and 34 seconds into this recording, Charlie slips. See, he's got to be careful on these calls when he's talking to Katie.
Okay.
Because he doesn't want her to think that he's setting her up and setting up her friend, whoever that might be. He doesn't know at this point. He has a guess, but he doesn't know. And the reason why he has to do that is because he needs her help. She's the one who is most equipped to help him figure out, is this a bad guy? Because if it's a bad guy, he's worried they're going to get killed. She says his first instinct isn't to pay. We're going to get to that. His absolute first instinct in Dolce Vita is to pay. You can listen to it. So he has to be careful in how he talks to her, but 3 minutes and 34 seconds into D 1392, he says the following. I mean, you didn't do anything with my mom. And she responds, what would I do with your mom? And he says, just checking. What could that possibly mean if he's not referring to the extortion? How could that possibly be talking about a murder for hire? It cannot be. 3 minutes and 34 seconds in, give or take. D 1392. Don't take my word for it. Listen to it. On the wires, Charlie Adelson's way of calming down his mom, and what he is hoping for is that it is the police. How does that make any sense if he did a murder? He did a murder, but he's hoping that the police are onto him? It makes no sense. See, he's hoping it's the police because he didn't do a murder. And if it's the police, no one's going to get killed. They went through Dolce Vita with you, and I'll probably go through it a little bit more with you later. But let me say this. Listen to it for yourselves. Think about the parts that they left out in their closing. How about the 9 times that he says something to the effect of, we have nothing to hide. We didn't do anything. How about the 36 times he says that on the wires? How about when he says in Dolce Vita, these people only know part of the story, or they think they know part of the story? What could he possibly be talking about?
I don't know.
If he did a murder for hire. What he's saying is, they think we did a murder for hire. They don't understand I was extorted. They think they know the whole story, but they only know part of the story. And that's why I hope it's the police. In Matsuri, he says twice, the funny thing is. Listen to it in the context. What's funny is they don't realize that the sting they put together is close to the truth. PP 2325. 7 minutes in. They opened on it. But they didn't want to play it for you. They skipped over it. It's in evidence. You can hear it. There's talk about it being someone not from the first layer, but probably the second layer. Talking about extortion. The first layer is when he was extorted.
Anybody
on the evening of
following this
July
guy?
18th,
Let's see.
and his payments for the 21 months. The second layer is the bump.
The bump. Again, to Katie, what
He's
about all
trying
the
to
evidence
figure out,
pointing at the jury is bad? A life
is it
for
the
life.
police? Is it
Yes,
a
they can
copycat?
object during
Or
closing.
is it the same
George
guys?
is like, shut him up for judge, please. He's sweeping the floor with my case. Is Charlie
On the
blackmailing his
liars,
attorney?
who
How
are the
else
only people that call and
would
speak
he
with the
represent
undercover?
him? Well, that's guys. Everybody deserves
They
a
call from their cell
representation.
phones.
Donna
Don't
never
make a
went
big
to the
deal about star
police.
67. They call from their cell phones.
He was close to his
They don't
mother,
get
wanted to
murder
make her
phones.
happy.
The only two people that speak with the undercover, Charlie Adelson, Donna Adelson.
The
Ask yourself why.
undercover. Because he approached them.
Reasonable doubt, a puzzle piece, doesn't fit.
What? Just because you say so? Even Charlie's like, that doesn't make any sense, dude. Okay, in
Look at the
all
text
honesty, I feel like a
messages.
lot of people
I
are
fought
watching a
to get in
completely
these text
different case if
messages. Ask
you
yourself
even
why I had to
for a
fight
minute
so
think
hard.
that he's
But I would
innocent.
object to Your Honor's rulings and
Sustained.
legal objections.
Please move on.
Look at the text
Objection.
messages that are in evidence. Nothing out of the ordinary. Everything explained. He didn't hide or flee. Not like Catherine McBanoa. Another lie she told you all. She said she didn't know it was the police outside. She didn't hide. You heard she hid. You heard she got a burner phone.
Wait, who got a burner phone?
II 1393, 1 minute and 47 seconds in. A call between Catherine Magbanua and Sigfredo Garcia. 1 minute and 47 seconds in, Katie tells Sigfredo that she's worried, in essence, that Charlie's parents, Donna and Harvey, are going to go to the police. If they're co-conspirators in a murder for hire, why would she be worried that they're going to go to the police? It doesn't make any sense.
Puzzle pieces. Your client is the top animal in this whole thing. What doesn't make sense is the
Simply
extortion.
put, these
They
puzzle pieces
haven't been watching,
and
they're
others
clowning.
do not fit the state's theory. Why?
Federal white collar
Because
is
while they
a
want to make
different
this a
sport
simple
than
explanation,
state.
while they use words in closing 13 times could, 6 times maybe, 2 times maybe not,
Maybe
3
yes,
times
maybe not.
suspicious, 6 times coincidence. That is not beyond a reasonable doubt. That is not what we do in this courtroom. We
That's
presume
kind of-
innocence. We don't
No,
guess.
but the jury is
We don't ignore things that don't
the
fit
jury
into the theory.
decides. The jury decides what they're gonna think it's coincidence or not. You don't, Rauschenberg.
Now, I want to turn
Puzzle
to
pieces.
the testimony at trial, and I will try not to be repetitive. The first group of witnesses, we asked very few questions. We don't disagree that the murder of Professor Markel was horrific. They showed you those pictures today. I can't look at them. These people that killed him were animals. We agreed that the police work was phenomenal.
Charlie doesn't seem very hurt, but
That's
it's
why they
been a long
talked to
time.
the people
Okay.
who did this. You also remember, check your notes, Then
Somebody
none
said,
of
"Can I
those
use the
original
judge as a cuddle pillow for my
witnesses.
nap?" He does seem very huggable. He's very huggable, the
said a word
judge.
about Charlie Adelson. Now, the first witness of substance was Agent Sanford. He came twice, so we're going to deal with him each time. The first time he came on the stand, let me say this. He's an honest and truthful guy. He's exactly what you want from a witness. Compare him to Catherine McBanwell. Compare him to Ryan Fitzpatrick. We'll get to that. They put in emails through him.
Puzzle
And
pieces.
they showed that there was distress in the family, that there was anger over the relocation issue and divorce. They also showed that the relocation issue was denied in 2013. The summer
I
of
can't help but
2013.
laugh every time they
A year
show
before
Charles'
yours.
face. Most of you are gonna be
We saw that
okay.
there
I'm
were
not
very
gonna
few
say
emails
that.
from Charlie
Charlie
Adelson,
wasn't
although
an
he was
honest and
aware of
truthful
some
guy,
of the crazy
though.
emails.
That's true.
And he would say things like, "Good idea." We learned about the $1 million offer and how Charlie was going to pay a third of the $1 million with the hopes of getting paid back.
Right.
And we learned through Agent Sanford that there were emails that showed that this $1 million offer, the Adelsons consulted a lawyer on it.
There was nothing saying the
Make
hopes
sure they
that
were
he
doing
would get
things
it
legal.
back, by the way.
We learned that in his experience, murders for hire aren't paid this way. We've already talked about that.
Puzzle pieces.
And we learned that there is ongoing discussions about where
Charlie
the
looks
kids
like
were going to go to
Mr.
school
Yuck.
in the fall of 2014.
Innocent, no doubt.
Ask yourselves, why
Johnny
do you need those
Depp's
discussions if you
lawyer
know you're
would
about to
never
kill a
take
guy
this case.
and relocate?
Is being a hobbit
And then we
protecting
heard from
your
Wendy Adelson.
jaundice? Guys, this is not funny. The guy
And
has
again,
been
we spent a lot of
incarcerated
time
for a few years now, so
crossing
yeah, he
Wendy
doesn't look
Adelson
great. Don't worry about the
because we
divorce
wanted to show
argument.
you
It's not the same
that
as
their
denying the
theory on
divorce
her
was
was
bitter.
absolutely wrong. And one of the things I didn't mention earlier, in addition to the plane tickets and the hiring of a divorce lawyer and the scheduled meetings and the custody arrangements in August, you see in Defense Exhibit 6 that she's trying to buy a house. Now, they talk about a house on Halloween Halloween of 2013 that Charlie convinced her not to get. What about when she's looking for a house just a month or so before the murder? No evidence that anyone's trying to stop her then. She testified that she was not worried about disbarment. By the way, we called her lawyer to the stand to buttress her testimony because the same motion was made against her. And she testified she wasn't worried about disbarment either.
Okay. What does that have to do with anything?
She testified that she never made the $1 million offer or the Christianity email threats. We showed through emails and on the wires to support her testimony that after the murder, she was scared and sick. You don't have to take Charlie's word for it, and you don't have to take my word for it. It's on the wires. On the wires themselves, it talks about how Wendy is finally getting over this. We showed through stipulation that there's no way she and the kids could have been on the road the day of the 17th. And we showed that through her that Professor Markel posted in a lot of places about his travel. Now, we have no idea how Catherine McBanwell and Sigfredo Garcia knew where Danny lived and knew when he was going to be out of town. We don't know because it has nothing to do with us. but we showed you possibilities of where the information could have been found. That,
Yeah, you
ladies and
guys gave
gentlemen,
us a
is the
theory.
definition of reasonable doubt. As opposed to some crazy explanation, and we'll get to it, that just 3 weeks after dating, he put some letter in her bag that she doesn't know what the letter is about and what it says, but it must have been that. Does that make any sense? And we showed that on the day of the murder, Wendy Adelson voluntarily was interviewed for hours without a lawyer. She gave her phone. She let them search her car. She let them search her computer. And she named everyone who could have done this. Everyone that came to mind, the first person she named was herself. And yes, she mentioned the hitman joke. And then she said, but he wouldn't do it. By the way, talk about a puzzle piece that doesn't fit. His co-conspirator goes to an interview with law enforcement on the day of the murder and tells law enforcement about the hitman joke. Does that make any sense? It does if they're not co-conspirators. It does if they had nothing to do with the murder. Reasonable doubt. She talked about her problems in the relationship with Jeff Lacoste, how he was stalking her and jealous.
Okay.
She was adamant that Charlie never actually looked into hiring a hitman, that was a lie.
The man is
She
innocent.
was
Uh-oh,
adamant
the
that
master
dinner they had
lawyer
weeks later,
now trying to
no one
blame
called
his
it a celebration
sister.
dinner.
Honest and truthful guy. Whoever said he drives 6 hours to extort
Her
somebody, they
testimony.
didn't. They drove 6
A
hours to
state
kill
witness
someone.
did just the opposite of proving their case. It gave more reasonable doubt, and I would submit proved innocence. The next witness was Officer Brandon. His testimony was short, but indicative of the state's case. He testified that Wendy drove down Trescott. Again, she explained why. But more importantly, the state tried repeatedly to pound this evidence in to show that Catherine Magbanawa made a phone call, got a phone call at 12:30 and said, I know it's already been done. Remember that testimony? And the state was desperate to say that that phone call somehow came from Wendy Adelson. But look at their own exhibit. The phone call is at 12:30. They showed it to you today. Look where Wendy Adelson is at 12:30. She's nowhere near the residence. According to the state's theory, she must have mind-reading ability. But yet they continue to try to pound that
Or
puzzle
she
piece into
knew
place.
Wendy's boyfriend was not stalking her. That's a horrible accusation. Rauschenbaugh yelled at Jeff for not going to the police after he
They
heard the
doubled down
joke.
on it.
Whatever he testified to, Wendy and
Ask
Donna
yourself
should
why.
really be held accountable. He was the stooge to them that did all
Jeffrey
the setup.
Lacoste.
Correct.
The jury
Not
instructions
Cuban.
will tell
That
you to
guy
evaluate
seemed very
bias in
heartbroken.
witnesses.
True. A lot of this can be explained by
Certainly they're
premeditation. Yeah, the ex-boyfriend seemed to be like a victim of a narcissist,
It is
honestly.
not up for dispute that Mr. Lacoste was a jilted lover who was stalking Wendy Adelson.
Oh, come on, dude.
You heard that from Hale, Officer Hale, the later witness. More importantly, though, Jeffrey Lacoste thought that the Adelsons and Wendy had tried to frame him. He was upset about that. They thought he tried to frame them
Yeah,
I thought they tried to frame
definitely
it as
seemed
murder.
that way because they used the car just to have a car similar to his and then switch the car.
And so his testimony was shaped by that anger. The truth is, he had a nice time at dinner with Charlie on March 11th at Yardbirds. There's a text message in real time, unsolicited, confirming that. Charlie didn't send him a text, he sent Charlie a text. The truth is, when he talks about Charlie having associations with the Cuban element, whatever he testified to, by the way, no one in this case is Cuban.
What?
Tell you a secret, Sigfredo Garcia is not Cuban. Luis Rivera is not Cuban. Made up.
Does that make any difference?
He admitted that even though he supposedly thought Wendy was part of a murder, he would have gotten back together with her. Does that make any sense?
Not Cuban. Case closed. Everyone's lying or confused.
He
Charlie's
says
defense.
that Wendy told
After
him
this conviction, are
that
they gonna
Charlie
go after
really
the
looked into
ex-wife?
hiring a hitman.
I don't
He
care if
says
he's
she
a
told him
traffic
this
court
when
lawyer.
they were breaking up.
I think he'll get
Does that make
sentenced
any
immediately,
sense?
right? Judge has no discretion on one possible option.
He says that after they broke up, she told him it was a celebration dinner. Meaning
Still
she's
can't believe
telling him,
defense.
I did a murder.
Wendy's divorce
Charlie.
attorney on the stand to make the deceased
Does that make
victim
any
look
sense?
bad. Definitely in poor taste. Yeah.
And then you hear about these notes. You hear it from Officer Hale and others, how there's a bunch of notes. He took a bunch of notes. I never saw the notes. You know why? He destroyed them. Ask yourself why. His testimony makes no sense, is biased, and should be discounted as nonsense.
Okay, thanks.
Someone who is angry because he thinks they tried to frame him. Stephen Webster. Honest. Nice. This was Professor Markel's divorce lawyer. But notice something. He's not a divorce lawyer. He's a criminal lawyer. Never litigated anything in the case. But yet they call him to try to bolster some sort of motive that Wendy Adelson was so fearful and the family was so fearful that she was going to be disbarred, that these motions were going to be successful. When I asked him, did you know that the judge was frustrated with Professor Markel? He had no idea because he wasn't the lawyer at the time. Junum Chindo. She testified that Charlie sleeps with a gun. Why would he sleep with a gun if he was part of the murder? She testified that during the bump, she wasn't actually clear, but I'll give him this. During the bump and after that, he was upset. He was acting weird. Of course he was. He didn't know whether his family was about to get killed. He didn't know who was extorting them the second time. She also testified how Charlie flew out of the country and always returned. Ryan Fitzpatrick. To me, this witness sums up the state's case. And it's scary. He had no firsthand knowledge of anything. And you learn only through cross-examination that years after the murder, when he was about to be sued by Charlie, he threatened him to go to the FBI and say things bad about it. You learn that just days before coming in this courtroom, he's on a blog taking bets about whether he can cause him to serve the rest of his life in prison. Disgusting. Luis Rivera. The state still doesn't get it. I'm not going to discredit his testimony, just the opposite. To me, Luis Rivera's testimony was in some ways the most significant. He's an animal, but he was truthful. He said what he knew. It proved firsthand why you must find Charlie Adelson not guilty of all 3 counts. It proved firsthand reasonable doubt. It was an aha moment. Let me remind you of it. He admitted that Katie was the mastermind of the killing. He said that everything had to be cleared through Katie. He said that everything he and Sigfredo knew came through Katie. He said he wanted to do a robbery, but Katie said he couldn't do a robbery, that it had to be done this way. We went through all the lies that Katie told him through Sigfredo, the lady being on Trescott, the purpose of the trips, the amount of money. He now understood why he got $37,000 instead of $35,000. We went through the fact that he knew nothing about the payments over time or the gifts to Katie. And here was the punchline. When asked, could this have been an extortion and not a murder for hire? Could they have lied about that to you too? His answer was yes. One of the 2 shooters admitted to you that knowing what he knows now, this could have been an extortion. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the definition of reasonable doubt. Am I going to discredit him? No. I'd never talked to him before. The first time I met him was in this courtroom. Their witness says it could have been an extortion. Catherine McVanawa. Now, we've talked a lot about her already, and I don't want to talk about her much more. But ask yourself about all her lies. This Halloween nonsense. Go take a look at Defense Exhibit 34. Charlie Adelson knew nothing about Sigfredo Garcia on Halloween. You see it in text message on November 27th. They'll try to spin the text message. Read it for yourselves. Defense Exhibit 34. Her testimony alone should give you a mountain of reasonable doubt. Clarissa Libiedo and Erica Johnston. The state called them to prove something we already admitted in opening. Katie didn't work at the Adelson Institute. Mary Hall, truthful witness. She confirmed that Katie got paid overtime. She couldn't give you exact numbers, but when you look at the numbers, you see it corresponds to around $3,000 a month. She confirmed that the Adelson checks created a paper trail, something that Charlie had no issue with because he was not part of a murder. She confirmed the gifts, the payments for the car repairs. By the way, she confirmed that he put many of those on his credit card, creating a paper trail as well. Now let's talk about those gifts, because I want to make sure everyone understands. Over time, Charlie became more and more convinced that Katie was not part of the extortion. But he needed her help. See, because as long as she was helping him, he knew he wasn't going to be paid a visit. As long as she was helping him, he knew the money wouldn't go up.
I don't know about all that.
So he tried to keep her happy.
But he said, I love you. I'm so lucky to have you in my life. I mean,
Now, they want you to believe he tried to keep her happy because he was worried that she would go to the police and report a murder that they both did together.
right. That makes a lot more
Does
sense.
that make any sense?
Yes, actually.
No, he tried to keep her happy because he wanted her to know he was appreciative that she was helping him. Investigator Corbett, a thorough witness, straightforward guy, honest. This is the phone analyst investigator. He looks at patterns. He doesn't know what's said on the phone. It's guesswork. He sees the frequency in the amount of calls. And he looks for patterns. Now, when asked, could these calls be because it's a boyfriend and a girlfriend, a mother and a son, husband and a wife? He says, of course. He also confirmed that there's an absence in records. That by the time they arrest Charlie Adelson in 2022, we can no longer get phone records before when they got him originally. We can no longer get SunPass records. SunPass records would show that Donna Adelson and Charlie Adelson, Donna Adelson and Harvey Adelson never were at Charlie Adelson's house that night. He confirms that. And he also confirmed that there were
How
a
is the
lot of calls
landline
that
argument
are
crazier
consistent between Charlie is driving to work.
than Charlie getting closer to the extortion handler after the murder of a family member?
Now, I want to talk about this landline.
Grasping
issue,
at the straws is what
because
Rushbaum is
it
doing.
crazy. It may be the craziest thing in this case.
Jurors
And
are
it's
never going to
done to
convict
incite you.
puzzle pieces, y'all. Someone sneak the judge a chicken
And when
wing.
you think about it, you're going to see it means absolutely nothing. So they have a chart. She showed it in closing of frequency in using the landline, calling the landline. And you see that Charlie hardly ever calls his parents' landline. Okay?
Okay.
And they want to show you that on a particular day or days, he calls the landline. So that must mean something. What does it mean? He's using his cell phone. He's calling his parents' number that has been the same number since the year he was born.
Puzzle pieces.
Grasping at straws. That's what that is. Then they confuse a wired call with those calls. What they're confusing is there's a call after Charlie. You'll see it in, go look at it. There's a call
Okay.
after Charlie learns about the text message that they sent to his mom at like 2 a.m. You'll recall that he and his parents meet at the pool at their apartment. And you'll recall that Charlie then goes and he goes to a friend's office and he gets a call or calls Katie. And then he says, I'll call you from a landline. And that's because he doesn't get good service in that office. It has nothing to do with his parents'
He
apartment.
doesn't get good service in the dentist office. Maybe he should call a new company then,
This
because
landline.
that's his business.
It doesn't mean anything.
No?
It's like magic. It's like they're putting on a magic show. Use your common sense.
Puzzle pieces.
Corbett also confirmed that Charlie's house was a stone's throw away from the turnpike, and that the most direct route to Tallahassee for Donna and Harvey was to take the turnpike, which passes right outside.
Charlie planning a holiday when he's found not guilty. All the Adelson shall go in a
Leave his
world
house for more than 24 hours after
cruise
the night he
with
was
the stolen
extorted.
kids too. Then they come
They
by
show
write
you
a
that
book
gym
if we
cast.
did it.
Corbett, their own
The
witness,
judge doesn't look
confirms
impressed.
he didn't leave the house.
Judge to wife, they'll be back by this afternoon. So get the gumbo started for dinner tonight. Gaslighting.
Special Agent Jimenez.
I was shocked when Charlie took the stand. I thought he's going down a bad way, and then that didn't happen at all.
He pretends
Everything has
to
been
be a
nearly the
Latin
opposite
King
of
gang
what
member.
I thought.
Since
Charlie knows.
when
The
he
judge
does the
knows
bulk of
Charlie's
documents.
innocent. Puzzle pieces. I don't think
It's
so.
going to be critical that you hear that.
Wendy and Don are gonna be next. Divorce is a nightmare, but
He
murder is
pretends
not
to
the
be a
solution.
brother of Tato.
Yeah, no shit. The
he
bump
testified
was
up
portrayed
here,
as a brother
the
of
reason why
Tato.
he
They
did
never
that
implied they were
because
Latin
he
kings when
wanted-
doing the bump.
The Adelsons to know that it was gang related.
This lawyer could write a 200-page story of
Up
what
until
life
this
is
point in
like
time, we're now
on
in
the inside of a
2016,
tennis
April
racket.
19th. There's nothing about Latin Kings. No matter how many times Ms. Kappelman wants to ask Charlie about Latin Kings in 2014.
Yeah, he doesn't
talk
want
to
to
you
get the
about
Latin
Latin
kings
Kings in
involved at
2014.
all. He's like, no,
You're
they're my
nowhere near
family.
this case in Charlie's mind until 2016. And more precisely until April 20th of 2016.
I'm so confused.
We'll get there in a moment.
Captain
But
Safe to
Jimenez
deliberately trying to
testifies that
confuse
he
the jury.
inserts this into the bump.
Uh,
Then we heard from Agent Bronstein and Keith McElvey.
Russian bomb is like the Roomba
And
that
we
you
learned
set up
from
to
them that
vacuum your
only
floor.
part of
Instead,
Delta
just
Vita is
goes around
recorded.
in circles, cleaning up
You saw it's
nothing.
difficult to hear. We can't hear almost anything Catherine McBandle was saying.
That's so true.
And we learned that there's numerous recordings. By the way, you have two of the recordings.
Okay.
I submit to you that the recordings are the exact same. You can listen to them for yourselves.
We did. The guy's talking about how to clean up a murder.
But it's interesting where they started the recording that they played for you.
Doesn't matter. It's still a recording. Still don't invent what's
And we
there.
know what he meant when he said that because he never fled. You heard from Special Agent Sanford. He went to places far away. Extradition's tough. And he always came back.
Getting a visitor here in my lap. Come here.
Investigator Kendall Matsuri.
You okay?
Probably my favorite question in the case that he didn't understand till later when I asked him whether he didn't like sushi. That's how they knew he was police. But he testified that when he arrested Charlie in 2022, there was barbed wire and cameras all over his house. Ask yourself why.
Barbed wire.
Confirmed that arrest
All right.
was 6 years after the arrest of Sigfredo and Kate. Ask yourself why.
Why, Self?
Now they put on evidence through Special Agent Sanford a second time, and they were called. They called him to put in all the wires, but he couldn't really talk about what the wires meant because he wasn't part of those conversations.
Puzzle
Only
pieces.
2 people could really talk about what they were meant. And frankly, I thought maybe we'd have a he said, she said case in this case. They didn't call Catherine McBandle. You only have one version.
Rashi working at a puzzle factory at this point. The real MVP is that core reporter's attention span. She's holding on for dear life for Raschenberg.
Sanford the second time confirmed.
I have
that
to learn
Katie was
how to do
hiding
the
when
trick. I
police came
feel
knocking on
name
her
is
door.
practically
She
on
lied
the
to you
movie
about that.
marquee. I don't understand that
He
one.
confirmed that Katie lied
Charlie's
during her
records show he had
proffers.
about $8 million
They had a
in
walkout.
assets when he
She
was
lied to you
arrested.
about that.
Wow.
He confirmed that there was no evidence of any calls between Katie and Charlie after Sigfredo's arrest in the spring of 2016.
Okay.
He testified to the numerous lies that Katie told on the wires to Charlie
Charlie
You
feared
have to
for
get
his
all
life.
that
This
for
is reasonable,
co-conspirators,
jury.
Fredo.
I think if I was the court reporter, I would just type more of
was
the
their
same,
case.
more of the same, more of the same.
We had no obligation to put on a case.
And you
We're
didn't.
evaluating
Sit down, Rash. Scratch
the
your beard
presumption
now.
of innocence and
Jury
whether they
will go
met
home and
their
come back
burden
tomorrow
beyond
AM.
a
Guilty on
reasonable
3
doubt.
charges,
Stop right
life,
there.
no parole. Someone take away Rush about
They didn't
shovel.
come
Talk
close.
about burying his own client. Did he say can't do extradition with Thailand? What?
But we put on a case.
Puzzle
We
pieces.
talked a little bit about lawyer Adelson. We can move on from her. I think you get the point of what her purpose was. But Charlie Adelson testified.
Charlie feared for his life because Katie and Latin Kings made it clear extortion.
And
We
when
don't have
he
any evidence of
testified,
that. Even Charles is
You
confused.
saw him explain on direct what happened on the 18th. How he was extorted. How he was fearful for himself and his
Please.
family.
Guilty. Charlie's flay.
You heard why he
This ends in
didn't
a
go to the
mistrial for
police.
the second round. They
No,
should give
listen.
mushrooms or MDNA
Some
to
of
the
us might
witness
go to
and
the
the
police, some of
defendant. The
us might
truth may
not.
come up faster.
You heard why he didn't go to the police.
Why? Why didn't he go to the police again?
Reasonable.
What?
He had just seen what had happened to Professor Markel. He knew the
Justice
danger
for
of these
Dan.
people.
Yes. Can't keep up with
She
all
wants
that's
you to
being thrown
think that
out.
he
The
would
places that
negotiate
won't
with
do
Katie that
extradition to the
night.
U.S. are not places Charlie wants
He
to
was
be.
stunned. What was there to negotiate?
Yeah, like Lucy had a lot of explaining to do.
And again, there's no counter narrative because they didn't call Katie McBanawa and ask her about it.
Blah 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 blah. Guilty. Good job. You have bored us to death. In any case, the prosecutor will never have
You
all
heard
the
why he thought Katie wasn't part of
answers
it
to a crime.
and was protecting them. And you may remember Miss Kappelman
Blah blah blah.
trying
blah.
to trick him.
But wait, he's not Cuban. That's what the comments are saying.
He was clear in 2014. he
Donna's
had
on
no
that. You're
idea
up
she was
next,
behind
honey.
it.
Yeah, Donna, you be like
no matter how
meddling.
many ways
be
she
meddling.
tried to ask the question.
I honestly can't even hear what he's saying at this point because it's so
you saw him
ridiculous.
explain all the wires. I'm not going to do it here. I won't do that to you all.
Blah 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 blah.
You saw
Leslie.
him explain every word on Dolce Vita.
Layla says Charlie's gonna go live in like Iran or North Korea with none of his precious stacks
You
of
saw
cash.
him
Not a chance.
explain what
Katie
Dolce
lied a lot
Vita
to
was
Charlie.
about.
She did not tell him about tattoo and everything. Well, we don't
See,
know
what
about
you
all that.
learn
Does
that
he really
he
think
met with his
it's
mom.
Latin Kings?
And at first, he thought this might be the same original
Paul
extorter
Revere says
because he
guilty,
knew
guilty,
that
guilty.
Catherine and
You'll be
Sigfredo were
fine.
having
Says
issues.
pretty sure Ricky Martin
made
has
him
something
nervous.
to do with the murders.
But he also
Leslie Griffin
saw
said,
how
wonder if
different
Rash
this
got paid in
was.
stapled cash.
And I apologize. I went over so many wires.
You
where
went
it's the same
over
thing
so
over and
many
over and
nothings,
over.
Rauschenberg.
As to him trying to compare the two
Bazinga
events. I did
wants
it for a
his
reason. It
Tonto,
wasn't
the
to bore
Lone
you.
Ranger.
It was to show you in real time what was on his mind.
And says not guilty.
When he met with his mom, because of the differences,
Guitar Sound
was pretty
says the
certain it
jury
was
is
the
bored and
police.
insulted by having
And he
to
had no
listen to this
clue
nonsense.
who
The
Tonto
jury are
was.
regular folk with common sense.
but then
Exactly.
he meets with Catherine McBanawa in that
I'm the
car,
last person
and
that would want to
he freaked
put
out.
anybody in prison for life. And I'm
You know why he
listening to
freaked
this and
out?
I'm like, I think he might be guilty.
Because he learns that there is a Tato.
He's too involved in this.
He learns that he is not only in the Latin Kings, but is the head of the Latin Kings.
Mad Marsha says, wait, Nacho did
He
it.
learns that he has brothers. Remember the bump?
Or bump.
My
The
brother is
extortion.
incarcerated. And he learns that Tato is
LAW
incarcerated.
says Charlie should write a book like
And he
OJ
thinks to
if
himself,
I did it.
oh my God. And by the way, he also learns
Yasmin
which we now know
Miller
is a
says
lie,
he's going to be found not guilty. This
because,
defense
again,
attorney's
Katie was
means
trying
is
to protect
amazing,
Fredo.
unfortunately. I don't follow you,
learns
Yasmin. I don't think so.
that Tato was
Gary
the killer.
Plum
He
says
wasn't
can't
the killer.
blame the defense for this Hail
Fredo
Mary.
was the killer. Tuto.
That's what I agree.
But
Tuto or
in the
Tato?
car, he learns about the Latin Kings. He learns about Tato, and he learns that
Misty
is the
May
guy
says, all
that
right, she don't make fun
she
of
told him
Tuto
killed
and
Professor Markel.
Taco, two gangsters. Rob
And you
Potato,
wonder
did he
why
just
he's
dock
talking the way he's
undercover's
talking
name?
at Dolce Vita. He
Dolce
is
Vita.
freaking out.
Catalina says,
He thinks
Clue,
his mom,
I love this
if they
game. It was
don't
most
pay,
definitely
is
Sigfried
going
Garcia,
to
Luis
get
Rivera
killed.
with the firearm in the garage. I've always hoped
And if she
that
doesn't get
justice
killed,
for Dan
someone
would
else
rain
is.
down on
And
the
so when they walk into Dolce
Adelsons.
Vita,
Dolce Vita.
that's what the debate is about. So you have to understand the context of the conversation. When they're talking about
The
rental
Rib
cars, it's
says
because he's
Aladdin
just learned
Kings
about
by
the rental
Disney.
car. When they're talking about dead gang members, it's because he's just
Catalina,
learned
but
about
here
a
we
gang
are,
member,
and the
Tato.
state didn't wrap this up in a tight bow. Too many loose ends.
And the debate is he wants her to pay.
Bo Day
And she's
says
telling
Donna
him,
paid Rashly triple
not
to
them.
defend her,
It's not
Wendy
him.
and Harvey. Oh yeah, and Charlie.
And the reason why she's telling him it's not him is because she knows who Tato is. You saw Tato. He'd be a little bit more threatening than the guy we saw in the video.
Odin
And his
Aldini.
associates would be a little bit
What
more
is lawyer
threatening
talking
than Mr.
about?
Jimenez.
I don't know, guys. It sounds like he's gaslighting me, just
And
like
through
Charlie was
Dolce Vita,
gaslighting everybody.
what
It
you
just
see
sounds like
is a
everything
couple
is so
things.
confusing right now.
And you can listen to it. Don't take my word for it.
I don't take your word for
You
it.
see
I
him
listened
trying
to it.
act tough.
Charlie's talking to Katie about the
Then
crime.
you see him quickly say, but I didn't
Charlie's
know you.
talking to his mom
Keep my
about how
mouth
to
shut.
take care of things, and
So he's
there's
acting
present
tough. I'm carrying a gun. I'll shoot the gang member in my driveway, but I don't know anything. I'm keeping my end of the bargain from July 18th. I'm not going to say a word.
Kathy says judge is watching the jury. Leslie, he needs to
This
stop. He has
discussion
lost
about
everyone.
information and details. It's clear on
Fred
Dolce
Scott
Vita
says
and
Luis
on the
Rivera
wires what
says
they're
the
talking about.
dentist. That part is like the
details
gangsters are
aren't
saying,
details
I
about
don't
a
know, the
murder.
dentist is doing this, the
The
dentist is doing
details
that.
are details
Yeah.
about the payments. By the way, that's what they talked about when Jimenez came and did the bump. We
The
know
bump.
you've been helping. The payments. They leave out the fact that repeatedly he says, I don't care if it's the police because I've got nothing to hide.
Right?
Said in Dolce Vita.
He did say that. In a way, he did say that, yes.
Discussions about the importance of the characteristics.
But he was
of the
like more
guy who
like
approached
paranoid.
him.
Like, do you think it was the police? Do you think it's this? Do
He's
you
not
think it's that?
he's using a real phone number. He's not wearing a disguise.
I am curious how the
He's
white
not giving 48
hair
hours.
guy is still doing.
He's not being threatening.
Threatening.
Again, we talked about it. They only know part of the story. Discussions about who he hopes it is. Hopes it's the police. And you see that contrary to what Ms. Kappelman said in closing, his absolute first instinct is to pay. He wants her to pay. She doesn't want to pay. See, she knows it's not Tato.
Tato or Tito or
She
Taco.
knows it's not Secreto. And
Puzzle
she's
pieces.
trying to convince him it's the police. And you'll see in the video, she goes to the bathroom. And by the way, he's been talking like this. He doesn't stop. She goes to the bathroom and he finds
Not
her
to sound
witness.
biased, but I agree.
And when she comes back, you see his conversation changes again. He says, okay, I see what you say. Here's the number. Call the number. But he starts talking about how it's different. And then he calls his mom and he talks to his mom about how It's the police. And Matsuri is the same thing. Now, why they're talking in code, listen, I think this is semantics. There is no code, but we can agree on this. They are talking carefully. And the reason he is talking carefully depends on who he is speaking to. When he's speaking to Catherine Magbanua, he is speaking carefully because he needs her help.
Now he just seems like
He
a
does not
clown in a
want
suit.
to.
Nobody's asking themselves why. His client's life is on the line. He has to go
When his
on
mom
and
and
on.
him are speaking
The lawyer
carefully,
defense is proving
is
that
because he
Charlie
does
is
not want
100%
anyone to
guilty.
know, including the police, about the first extortion. Because if they know about the first extortion, they're going to come talk to him, and he believes that he and his family will be in danger. And by the way, he doesn't go to the police because it's clear the police wouldn't believe him. Just like they don't believe him right now. Now, during Miss Kappelman's cross of Charlie Adelson, you saw it. I'm not going to go into it in detail. But one thing is clear, is that he knew the wires.
Wendy being disbarred is the least of her
He knew
fears.
dates.
And you're representing
He
a
knew what it
liar who
said
murdered
on
Matthew
particular
Delore,
wires.
dude. I still have sound.
And you might ask yourself why.
Are his parents there?
His life is
No, I don't
dependent
think
on those
so.
wires. For the last year and a half, he's been in prison, jail.
Wow.
He's reviewed those wires because he knows they show what really happened. The wires show his innocence. And they certainly don't show proof beyond a reasonable doubt of his guilt. You know, like the landline, I want you to think about the bullet bourbon.
Oh, come on. Wow. When the
David
divorce was
Maltese
bad, but
was
doesn't
told
mean
to take a
murder.
picture
Please
of
sit
that bullet
down.
bourbon.
Neither the puzzle pieces nor rashy boxer short
None
fits.
to incite. Thank God Wendy Adelson kept the invitation to the party. Not the simplest explanation, but the truth. The state's case is like that. The case against Charlie Adelson is a case of guesses and of assumptions. It was not brought until just weeks before Catherine Magbanua's second trial. 8 years after the murder, 6 years after the arrest of Sigfredo, and later Catherine Magbanua. The evidence wasn't there then, and it isn't there today to meet their high burden. The puzzle pieces do not fit. He did not participate in the murder of Professor Markel.
Oh,
He didn't
Dan's
do
poor
it.
dad.
He didn't
The
conspire
first
to
one
do
to
it.
give the
He
cake
didn't
wins. Absolutely
solicit.
guilty. They're not allowed to speculate. The judge is probably telling Rash to wrap it up. He's gone way off the trails. They all
By the way,
been sitting
speculation
in
can
prison.
be reasonable doubt. You can go back there and
Any
speculate.
guesses of how
You
long
can
the
use
jury
your
will
common
take to reach a
sense.
verdict? Verdict today, please. How many of us
And figure out.
Objection, Your Honor, misstatement of the law.
here know one of the people involved? Approach. He can't be stating the law, Your Honor. He's not the law, Your Honor. Poor Dan understood that he was dealing with a bunch of psychopaths, but unfortunately for his children, where did it go? Where did it go? I was reading that. Okay, unfortunately, it was too late for him to save the life of his children and himself. I think this is the mom. I don't know who this guy is, but Let me Google and see if I can find Charlie Adelson parents. What do they look like? To see if they're here. Um, so sad, guys. Okay, that's what they look like right here. And it doesn't look like they are
Regarding
in
the last
court.
comment concerning speculation, you may continue with your argument.
Okay. Or you could just sit down,
You're allowed to use
Rauschenberg.
your common sense. That's what you're allowed to do. That's what you're told to do. You don't have to check that in the door out there. The presumption of innocence means that we presume the best about people. We presume them to be blameless. That means when you're listening to these wires, if there are two possible explanations, you go with the one that is favorable to Charlie Adelson. That's what is consistent with the presumption of innocence. The state wants you to assume guilt. They want you to listen to these wires and they want you to hear them in a certain way through dirty lenses. They want you to look at them through the lens of everything being wrong and sinister.
No, I think we have
That is
ears
not
that
what
we
the
can
law
listen
says
to
you
what
should
he's
do.
saying and think, why is he
If
talking
you
about all
presume
these
this man
murders?
innocent, which the
Why is
law
he talking
says
about
you
how to
must
get away
do,
with a crime?
which is what
with his ex-girlfriend?
each and every one of you gave your word you would do during jury selection.
Sure, they have common sense. You don't have
And
to
you look
remind
at
them.
these wires and you listen to them, assuming the best about Charlie Adelson. And when you have two explanations, both of them reasonable, you go with the one.
No, we
that
don't have to
presumes
assume the
his
best about
innocence.
anybody. We have to
That's how our
assume,
system works.
presume innocence, and listen for the evidence to then determine,
Reasonable doubt,
based on our common sense, what we
the
think.
judge has instructed you on. And he's told you that reasonable doubt is if you vacillate, if you go back and forth, that either explanation could be right. If you waver at all, that is living, breathing proof of reasonable doubt. And when you find yourself doing that, you must find Charlie Adelson not guilty. Because that is reasonable doubt and shows that the state did not meet its burden. Each and every one of you promised us during jury selection that you would have the courage, the fortitude, that if the prosecution didn't meet its burden, something they have not come close to doing in this case, that you would have the courage to say the words not guilty. And that's what we're asking you to do, because simply put, the evidence isn't there. The evidence is actually consistent with innocence. Now, because of the state's high burden of proof, they get another closing. And I don't get to speak again.
Good, thank God.
So I need each and every one of you, when they're speaking, to think in your minds, what would Rashbaum say? What would the evidence say?
What would Rashbaum say?
Remember,
My girlfriend takes
in
less
our
time to order
system,
from a menu
they
than
don't
this
get the
guy.
last word.
Judge does
You
have a
do.
poker face. We need inspector. LOL. Rashbaum did very good. He's up against the
know you
state.
will
Endless
take
money
your
to go to
jobs
try against these
Jurors
charges.
seriously.
Jurisprudences
I know
in
you will follow the
America.
law
Guess the boys won't be
the
going to Donna's
presumption
house
of
today after
innocence
school.
and the
Wow,
high
I thought
burden
they
of
would
proof.
have taken lunch. One jury act is strange. How
If
would
you
we
do that-
possibly know?
There is only one just verdict in this case. Count 1, not guilty. Count 2, not guilty. Count 3, not guilty. End this nightmare. send him home. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you,
State prepared to give its
Rauschenberg.
rebuttal closing.
Yes, Your Honor.
Oh,
You
now we're
may
gonna go
proceed.
straight to the prosecutor. Wow. Okay. No break, no bathroom, no nothing here. She's going again.
The defense has encouraged you to speculate in this case. The law does not allow that. I want to draw your attention to page 4 of your jury instructions. You'll have to pick them up. Page 4, middle of the page. Whenever the words reasonable doubt are used, you must consider the following. A reasonable doubt is not a mere possible doubt. Could it be? Not good enough. A speculative doubt. Speculation. Don't have that in the courtroom. We don't have that in the jury deliberation room. Imaginary or forced doubt. Not reasonable. Such a doubt must not influence you to return a verdict of not guilty if you have an abiding conviction of guilt. When you're back there and you're thinking about what Mr. Rashbaum would have said, he would have said, puzzle pieces. First puzzle piece, the motive doesn't fit because he had a great life and he wouldn't have wanted to ruin
They
his
would have
life.
said puzzle pieces.
problem
That's
with-
so funny.
That argument is arrogance.
That's what he would have said.
This was not an issue for him because he wasn't going to get caught because he was untouchable.
Mhm.
They said relocation had no impact on Charlie Adelson and that they proved Wendy's innocence in their questioning of her. Why are they working so hard to convince you Wendy is innocent? Does it matter? Y'all aren't being asked to decide anything about Wendy Adelson. There's nothing on that verdict form about Wendy Adelson. Did she corroborate the defense theory in this case? Wendy Adelson testified she didn't know anything about this supposed extortion of her brother, even though she moved there the day this happened. She didn't know in 14, she didn't know in 15, and she didn't know until it was announced in opening statements in this courtroom. I asked her about it, and she said, quote, well, I learned that someone made that argument. I don't know whether it's true or not. I don't know whether it's true or not. Even his own sister doesn't believe this load he's trying to say, y'all. Garcia wanted to kill the defendant so he wouldn't have done a hit on his behalf. And for that, they referred to the jet ski incident. They couldn't be in a conspiracy together because they hated each other. Well, that was part of the purpose of the walling off. The whole theory of this defense is that this defendant was so fearful of Sigfredo Garcia that he couldn't do the normal thing. He couldn't report this. But he continued to date Catherine Magdanois, Garcia's baby mama, after all this. After July 1, when they had this incident in the roadway. After the extortion. And even after that, he continues to send love notes to Sigfredo Garcia's woman. Even after the two of them get back together, he's still sending those notes because he's so arrogant.
Oh, Charlie, Charlie, Charlie. What did you do?
Defense has told you that the defendant made the joke about the TV being cheaper than Hitman to people he hardly knew. Who are those people? The only person that testified in this courtroom that they had heard that joke was Wendy Adelson. Lacasse was asked. The lawyer said they said it, but you guys have to refer to your notes and your own memories about what the evidence showed. But Lacasse was asked, did he say the joke at the dinner that y'all went to with Wendy and Garcia and Catherine Magdanois? I'm sorry, Wendy and Charlie and Catherine Magdanois. And he says, no. He does not recall that joke being made, and he thinks he would have recalled it had it been made. So there is no evidence in this trial that the defendant told that joke to people he hardly knew. If this was a murder for hire, it should have been paid in advance. Murder for hires always get paid in advance. That's what Pat Sanford said. That's not what he said. What Pat Sanford said is the arrests have been made close in time after the other murder for hire cases have worked. So there's no payment over time, gifts and stuff like that. Here, the investigation took years for the defendant to have the opportunity to try to keep her happy, to try to provide these gifts. Not only to her, but to Sigfredo Garcia. A gift card for a vacation on your extortion victim. Offered, not asked for, not demanded, offered. Offered to the extortionist. The defense talked about Catherine McVanois. He hates when people lie, and she's a liar, and she lied to you. Well, Mr. Rashbaum's opinion about the witnesses, he told you which ones were good, which ones were lying, which ones were truthful, which ones were the best ones, which ones meant nothing. You guys decide that stuff. Okay, what we say is not evidence. Catherine McVanois is a liar, though. I mean, she said other stuff, and now she's saying this. You guys have to consider that. That's a no-brainer. She has played every card she had, and this is the last stop for her. I agree with that. You guys agreed at jury selection that you would keep an open mind to that type of evidence, and that's all I ask you to do. Does it fit with the other evidence in the case? Because her last testimony sure didn't. Nobody has stronger feelings about Catherine McVanois than the ones sitting on this side. Would I ask you to base this defendant's freedom on the word of Catherine McVanois? That's what they said I'm doing. And I would never do that. Never. Does it fit with the other evidence in the case? That's what I'm asking you to consider. I didn't ask her about Dolce Vita. She verified the transcript. She said the words that scrolled when y'all watched it were the words that were said. The state has a doubt. What if we do? It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what the lawyers think. Doesn't matter. Do you have a doubt? Doesn't matter what I think. Doesn't matter what Mr. Rashbaum thinks. Regarding the defendant's demeanor in 2014, the defense said there was nobody that said anything about his demeanor. We only asked about, was he going crazy after the bump? And the answer was yes. That's not true. Ryan Fitzpatrick, who was his best friend in 2014, they didn't fall out until 2015, reported no change in his behavior. I said, was his behavior weird like that before the bump? No, not weird. That was his quote. He was normal until the bump, and then he was agitated, angry, freaked out, tense, stressed, whatever. Why didn't I play all of the calls? Did y'all get enough of the calls? It's trying to pick the parts that I think are important. They're in evidence. Feel free to listen to them. I do not want you to think I was trying to hide anything from you. Those are in evidence. And you will have an opportunity to review anything you want when you're back there with the recording equipment, headphones, and all that will be provided to you. The defense says in calls A, B, and C, if you did a murder with someone, wouldn't it be the first thing on your mind to report? Well, maybe, but you're probably not like Charlie is. You're probably not untouchable. Charlie Adelson asks the description on the wire, tell me about this guy, what's the timing, what was he wearing a disguise? How do those questions, the defense is offering that as evidence that he was trying to deduce whether this blackmailer was the same as the prior blackmailer, but he never saw the prior blackmailer. He only saw Catherine McVanois. So how does asking if the guy that approached his mother was wearing a disguise tend to prove his innocence or tend to prove his extortion theory? The guy that extorted him wasn't wearing a floppy hat and an Abe Lincoln beard. It was Sigfredo Garcia. It was Catherine Magbanua. Sigfredo Garcia, the first extortionist, didn't give him 48 hours to pay. He put him on a payment plan. He paid over years. The defendant, hoping it's the police, and saying, quote, these people only know part of the story, or they think they know part of the story. The defense picks that out and says, oh, there he is talking about the first extortion. Or is he saying, why did they go to my mom instead of me? I'm the one that has a connection to you. I'm the one that, I think what he says is, I'm the one that has a relationship to you. Why didn't they come to the one that's involved? I mean, I'm not involved. That's what he says. Why didn't they come to the one that was involved in this? That's what he's trying to figure out about why they went to his mom and not him. Can't even read my own writing here. Oh, the PowerPoint with Wendy. Okay, the dots on the cell phone PowerPoints do not indicate where the person was. They indicate the cell tower that was servicing the person's phone at that time. So they're going to be somewhere around there. And the testimony was that Wendy's dot at 12:30 could be consistent. He can't say where she was. Could be consistent with her being at Trescott. And we know she went to Trescott because Officer Glynn observed her there. So I'm not desperately trying to pound a puzzle piece into y'all that Wendy made the call to say it's done. I don't know that. I can't prove that. If that information was conveyed, I don't know how it got conveyed. All right, Lacoste. They really need y'all to discount the testimony of Jeffrey Lacoste, right? Because of that statement that Wendy made to him just before the murder, that all kidding aside, her brother really had looked into hiring a hitman to kill Dan Markel. And the defense says, you can't believe him, he's a jilted lover. And the evidence definitely showed that he was heartbroken over Wendy Adelson. But unfortunately for the defense, his brain was working just fine. And he
and then again, is that a coincidence?
Bragging in the hot tub about connections to a Cuban criminal element.
Bragging
The
about
defense says, oh, they're not
crime,
Cuban,
has
that's not in evidence.
connections with the
They're
girl.
of Hispanic.
The people who
descent.
actually
He
killed Dan
reported that
had
to
no
law
connections
enforcement,
to
but
Dan.
That's what Charlie said.
He's shown
Lacoste
to
said
be
no.
always meddling with his mom about Wendy.
Lacoste said he
It's too much.
bragged in the hot tub about having connections.
Talks
with
about
criminal
he talks
elements.
to Katie, his
And when
ex-girlfriend,
Lacoste
about
reported that
how the
information,
police has to
the
prove
killers had
guilt
not
of
been
a crime.
So he had no way of knowing.
It's just too many little things. Like,
Cuban
why is he
access
doing all that? Why is he involved in all
importance
this?
of that. Lacoste says Wendy reported the celebration dinner. Same thing. He comes in and tells the cops, look, she reported a celebration dinner to me where she vomited on the table. An inspection of the records proves there was a dinner and she did vomit. But they want you to believe that Lacoste is just lying about the celebration part. The Halloween text. They've asked you to look at their piece of evidence that talks about when Garcia learned about the existence of Charlie. That doesn't shed any light on what we were saying occurred on Halloween. On Halloween, Charlie, this defendant, approached Catherine Magbanua about, do you know anyone that can rough him up? Okay, we're not alleging that she called Garcia that day and said, hey, can you come kill somebody? That was just the first inquiry into a plan that developed over time between Charles Adelson and Catherine Magbanua. All right, the defense mentioned Erica, and I'm almost done. Erica Johnson and her testimony, that didn't mean anything. Why did they call them? What about that recorded call between the defendant and Erica? Why does he tell her not to talk to the police? What about June Mchinda? Why does he tell her not to talk to the police? They don't know about the first layer of extortion. They can't reveal the first layer of extortion that will reveal the second layer of extortion that will expose him to the Latin kings. Why is he telling them not to talk to the cops? Defendant's testimony. They say it's reasonable that he didn't go to the police with the truth because he had just seen what these people were capable of. They killed Dan Markel. He was in fear. Okay. Is that consistent with what you know about him? I refer you back to the wires and everything you know about him. But also, why then not come forward with this story when the bad guys were arrested and the danger was eliminated? Why not come forward when Catherine McDaniel was arrested and he believed her to be innocent? For 3 years, she awaited trial while this man thought she had nothing to do with it, according to him. Yet, he did not come forward with this story. Why not come forward after her conviction? All the bad guys have been arrested and convicted. Danger eliminated. Come tell the truth. He doesn't do it. What about after his own arrest? He doesn't come forward then. We learn it in this courtroom in opening statement. Defense says the defendant freaked out in the car before Dolce Vita. You have to watch Dolce again and see if you think he was freaking out or if he was in control of that situation.
So
He was the
here's
one
some
living in that
comments.
situation.
I do think Charlie got played so bad by Kate. His personality is clearly flawed. He's way too easy to deceive emotionally. Katie seems manipulative. No conscience, I guess.
I'll go back to the players.
Common sense and courage to see through a defense. I have reasonable doubt. This chat has been
And they had over a year
infiltrated.
to carefully plan this.
Good job,
With the goal of
prosecutor.
not getting
TikTok, 2 hours deliberation.
And he's had 7 years to think
Guilty.
about his
This will be
defense in
quick.
this case, since the case.
Here we go,
broke.
folks. How long? Which
He
Hunt?
does think he's
2.5 hours. My guess,
Don't
3 hours.
guess.
The verdict will take
Don't
a long
assume.
time. Charlie,
Get
age
evidence.
5 years
It
since
will tell
last
you
week. He looks
everything you
terrible.
need.
That's true. 1
But
hour
don't
less. I
let
have
the way
reasonable
the defendant
doubt.
thought he would
I
get
had no
away with
idea
this
Irish gangs
be
were
the
such a
reason
problem in
he
South
gets away.
Beach.
As long as you keep your mouth shut, you can get away with murder. Well, fortunately for us, the defendant didn't take his own advice. He did take the witness stand. He did offer statements, and you are able to assess.
Yes, and
his
he doesn't keep
credibility
his
as
mouth
part of
shut.
your determination
And he
of
can't
this
get
case.
away with murder.
Only one of us is putting on a magic show. It's up to y'all to figure out
Which
it
one?
is, right?
Yep.
We just hope and trust that you all have the common sense and the courage to see this case for what it is, to cut through all the stuff that the lawyers say and get to the meat of it and render a verdict that does justice for Dan Markel. And that is a verdict of guilty as charged. Thank you.
In just a few minutes, you will be taken to the jury room by the bailiff.
All
The
right.
first thing you should do is to choose a foreperson who will
Here we go.
preside over your deliberations. The foreperson should see to it that your discussions are carried on in an organized way and that everyone has a fair chance to be heard. It is also the foreperson's job to sign and date the verdict form when all of you have agreed on a verdict and to bring the
Wow.
verdict form back into the courtroom.
His life is on the
when
line
you
right
return.
now.
During deliberations, jurors must communicate about the case only with one another and only when all jurors are present in the jury room. If a juror goes to the restroom, the deliberation should stop until the juror returns.
No funny
You are not to
business
communicate with
in the
any person
bathroom.
outside the jury about this case. Until you have reached a verdict, you must not talk about this case in person or through the telephone, writing, or electronic communication, such as a blog, Twitter, email, text message, or any other means.
No
Do not
chats.
contact anyone to assist you during
Only Exhibit
deliberations.
E's. No chat.
These communication rules apply until I discharge you at the end of the case. If you become aware of any violation of these instructions or any other instructions I have given in this case, you must tell me by giving a note to the bailiff.
Really?
Many of you have cell
Cute.
phones, tablets,
Cute, cute.
laptops, or other electronic devices here in the courtroom.
Okay.
The rules do not allow you to bring your phones or any of those
Judge.
types of electronic devices into the jury room. Kindly leave your devices on your seats where they will be guarded by the bailiff while you deliberate. If you need to communicate with me, send a note through the bailiff. If you have voted, do not disclose the actual vote in any note. If you have a question, I will talk with the attorneys before I answer, so it may take some time. You may continue your deliberations while you wait for my answer. I will answer any questions, if I can, in writing or orally in open court. During the trial, items were received into evidence as exhibits. You may examine whatever exhibits you think will help you in your deliberations. The audio, cell phone, summary, disc, jump drives, photographic, and video exhibits will be sent into the jury room with you when you begin to deliberate. If you wish to see any other exhibits, please request that in writing. In closing, let me remind you that it's important that you follow the law spelled out in these instructions in deciding your verdict. There are no other laws that apply to this case. Even if you do not like the laws that must be applied, you must use them. For more than 2 centuries, we have lived by the Constitution and the law. No juror has the right to violate the rules we all share. Before the bailiff takes you back to the jury room, I'm going to have the clerk announce our alternates, and they will be dismissed at this point. I did want to say, though, to our alternates, I thank you for your diligent service throughout this trial. This is certainly a circumstance where 2-week trials are not the normal, but we thank you nonetheless for your service in this matter. Madam Clerk? Your belongings. If you wish to know the outcome of the trial, you may contact my office and we will respond. For the rest of the jurors, you may take your notepads with you. Please leave the copies of the jury instructions, but you may take your notepads and I believe your audio recording lists as well. This would be the point where everyone rises for the jury. They're coming out. Everyone can be seated. The attorneys can leave their phone numbers with the clerk. From here, we will be in recess unless there is a note or we have a verdict itself. Please leave your phone numbers with the clerk. We're in recess.
Okay. So sorry for the delay here. I was taking a break too. The jury, I think, went to deliberation, right? And we don't know how long that's gonna take. And tell me your thoughts. Put it on the comments. Subscribe and share. I'm going to come back in about an hour to go through the closing argument from the prosecution, the first portion of it before the defense went. And if you guys want to share your thoughts, I will be happy to read it here. Have a blessed day, and I'll see you soon.